Bobby, thanks very much for joining us. Can we start off by you just outlining what the Irish Grain Growers Group is about and who you represent?
The Irish Grain Growers Group was formed to represent tillage farmers in this country. We feel we're being underrepresented in Ireland the last several years. We morphed from the Irish Mod Group, which met initially in 2014 because malting prices were €147 a tonne, and we feel we were just being totally underrepresented. Currently, we have approximately 400 members based in Midlands and South East, and we have visions of growing into areas in the Northeast and South, like Cork and even up to Donegal. We've been in contact with people up there, so it's honours and uppers for the group.
And Bobby, what are some of the concerns among your members at the moment?
The biggest concern obviously is the weather this year. There's not only a fodder crisis happening, there's a tillage crisis happening. Yields are well back. In many instances, spring barley crops and wheat crops are yielding less than 2 tonne to the acre. Of a normal year, over the last 3 to 4 years, 3 tonne plus was the normal yield. So we're well back in yield, on straw. It's just a very worrying time for the tillage sector. That's the main concern at the minute.
Straw and grain prices have increased significantly in recent months, but as you said, the yields are dramatically back.
Yeah.
Has the increase in prices alleviated some of the concerns over yield loss?
It doesn't come towards the bottom line at the end of the day. We're still looking at another loss-making year. Straw prices have been driven by other sectors up. It wasn't the tillage farmer. I was asking a certain price for the grain, but he was offered more by other sectors to buy the straw. That's where straw prices drove up. We are probably back 2/3 number of bales to the acre, and straw prices probably doubled from last year. Now, that's the situation. So do the maths yourself. We're not being compensated compared to yield loss across the board. So it was a help, but not a solution.
And Bobby, can you go through the specification process that malting barley growers have to endure in order to get their malting barley to get the pass in the merchants?
Well, the first thing I'd like to say on it is the specifications have been tightened over the last several years. Today, on the normal year, this year has been an exception, to be fair. On a normal year, we need to produce malting barley at protein levels under 10.8% for the brewing industry and under 9.3% for the distilling industry. Now, they are very tight specifications to reach, and we're not being compensated enough for that tight specifications. Teagasc have done trials on this. Even if you target distilling standards, you need to decrease your fertilizer use, and at that you probably only get less than 50% of your distilling grade barley passed, and that either goes for brewing grade or feed grade after that. In a normal year, about a third of the grain is rejected because it doesn't meet the standards, and in exceptional years, 50%, 60%, and some farmers may get none of their barley passed. So that has to be taken into account.
And to be fair, the merchants did increase the specification this year from 10.8% up to 12%. Did that help?
It was a help. We requested that. The grain growers requested that to increase it up to 12%. It was a help for this year, but it just shows that why can't it malt barley every year with that specification? They have just tightened the specifications so tight, it's becoming unworkable.
Bobby, can you outline what happens when the malting barley doesn't meet the grade, when you don't make the specifications? What happens then?
Well, what you have to do is you deliver in a load of barley. It gets tested. There's about 20 specific tests that has to pass. Like skin grain issues, fusarium in the grain. There's several different tests that has to be done. But if it fails, you have to bring it home or try and get another buyer for that grain. That's the simple reality of it. It's not taken. by the buyers of malt.
Are there extra costs involved in that? So if you bring your malt and barley and to get it tested at one merchant, and then you have to transport it somewhere else to get it to sell it on to a feed merchant, do you know what are the kind of costs, the cost implications there for the malt and barley grower?
The transport is the key one, and time consuming as well. You could have to wait 3 to 4 hours to get your grain in. There could be queues to get your grain in, and you have to wait 3 or 4 hours, and then to find out that your grain has failed, and you have the transport issue then of bringing it to another merchant that you maybe haven't done business with, and for the likes of inputs, and you're at their mercy then as well. So there's a lot of situations involved in growing the crop that are not highlighted enough.
So you say there with the increased specification, it did help momentarily. Would you be looking for that to be increased again? Is that something that should happen on a yearly basis?
Look, we understand why the brewing industry and the distilling industry required the grain they require. It comes down to the alcohol that they can produce from specific grains and protein levels and the germination of the grain. So we understand that why they're looking for what they're looking for, but there definitely needs to be, the rules need to be loosened if this industry is to go forward, or basically pay up for this grain that you're looking for.
So what measures do the Irish grain growers propose to alleviate the situation?
Well, currently we're calling for a minimum of €250 a tonne to be paid for grain this harvest. That's more about approximately €50 over the tonne of feed grain at present. That's just to show confidence for the sector into the future. The reality is the next 2 to 3 weeks is going to decide a lot for the malting industry in this country, for Irish grain growers. We're coming to the stage now where feed, winter barley and winter wheat are going to be sowed in the next 2 to 3, 4 weeks, or farmers making up their mind whether to grow it or not. And if there isn't a positive response from the industry, I can see farmers are constantly telling me they're walking away from the industry this year. They're just fed up. The reality this year is malt and barley is probably going to make less money per tonne than feed barley this year.
Is that
which
a first?
Is diabolical. Yes, it is a first. Traditionally, farmers have been guaranteed 20, 30, 40 euro a tonne over feed prices, and this has just been wiped out, and it's a pure diabolical situation. On my own farm at home, I grow winter crops and I grow malt and barley, and the figures this year I have is 300 plus euro an acre more from growing feed crops than growing malt and barley. Now, you have to factor in the weather in that, of course, but that's the sums that I have in my own farm. The industry may wake up.
And Bobby, when you see how big the industry is worldwide and how the market for whiskey and beer is expanding and booming in the US, in Africa, in the Middle East, how does that make the Irish grain grower feel on the ground?
We're very disappointed. We welcomed the growth of the whiskey industry last week. They announced double-digit growth in some countries, single-digit growth of 8, 9, 10% in some markets. It's a phenomenal growth. The Irish whiskey industry has a very checkered history. Was once the leading industry worldwide. Historical reasons, it was partly wiped out, and now it's back growing again. We have the likes of Guinness, owned by a multinational company like Diageo. We feel there's a disconnect arriving into the whole business from the relationship between the farmer and all these industries. We need our side of the production line is not being represented enough. Why we make a very strong case. We tell it as it is for what we need out of this business to survive. And while we do welcome the growth, but it's just I fear for the future currently. I really do.
And that was outlined also in the VT that we saw there of James. So would you be concerned in the future that Irish malting barley won't be used in Irish products and Irish drinks products that are out there.
That's the harsh reality coming down the road. That the industry has to realise that. Currently, grain is being imported in this country to be used in the whisky industry. We have whiskies being made with no Irish grain being used in it. We believe grain is being imported for the brewing industry at present as well, and vast amounts of it. What annoys me as well, only yesterday I found out that our fellow growers in France got a price last year in 2017 of about 220, 230 euro a tonne for their malt and barley, whereas we got roughly 160, 170. So there's a huge void there from the same company. So questions need to be asked, and we're constantly asking them. But they may realise that this industry is going to be on its knees very soon at the farm gate.
Are there people leaving the industry, Bobby? That are you aware of people leaving? How many malt and barley growers are there at the moment?
Traditionally, in the Midlands Southeast area, there are 600-700 growers. As James Kelly pointed out there, they used to grow a vast amount of grain on their farm, malt and barley on the farm. Now they're gone down to 40-odd acres. That's been reflected across the country at present. I'm getting constant phone calls from people telling me that's it, we're finished with growing malt and barley. If it materialises that we get less for malt and barley this year, less than feed barley this year, we are walking away. Why would we hold on to an industry where we're being not looked after? There's a huge tradition in growing these crops, huge. My father grew it, my grandfather grew it, my great-grandfather grew it. Guinness is around 250-odd years on the back of Irish growing. The best in the world, the best in the world.
And Bobby, is your group, the Irish Grain Growers, engaging with government, engaging with the bigger merchants on these issues? Yeah,
thankfully the door has been opened by government officials. We've been up with the Joint Directors Committee. We've met different officials, department officials on this, on various subjects as regards tillage farming. The door has been open. We are educating a lot of people. One thing I found personally about the tillage sector is the lack of knowledge out there and the lack of investment in the tillage sector. That isn't even being looked for the tillage sector. That's one shocking thing I found out in my position.
We'll have to leave it there, Bobby. Thank you very much for joining us.